With so much focus on keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe and healthy, it's easy to forget that most of us are going to experience things like allergies, colds, possibly even the flu. So, reminding you, proper hydration is crucial for all of these things. Remember, even slight dehydration can make you feel like you're getting sick, and none of us need that anxiety right now, that's for sure. That's where Hydrolyte comes in. Longtime fans will remember my obsession with Hydrolyte, which is simply the best oral rehydration product I've tried. I'm even more excited to introduce their brand new single-serve powder sticks. Simply pour one powder stick into a glass of water. They recommend 7 ounces. The powder dissolves almost instantly, creating the perfect balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes of your typical sports drink. The other great news about Hydrolyte's new powder sticks, they're 100% all natural. No artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. They're available in flavors like orange and lemonade, and they taste great. Hydration is crucial, and Hydrolyte is fastest and easiest way to stay ahead of it. Get your supply of Hydrolyte powder sticks now at hydrolyte.com/DRDREW. Again, that's HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW, and then use that code Dr. Drew 25 at checkout.
Hey everyone, it's a dose of Dr. Drew.
Indeed it is. Thank you for being here, everyone. We are letting you pile into the chat room in a few moments. We are going to be speaking with Dr. Shahrokh Shabahang, who is a representative from Aditx. I promised you guys we're going to talk a little T-cell function and physiology, and Aditx is focused on improving the health of the immune system through monitoring and immune reprogramming. We're going to talk about the Aditx core monitoring system. We're going to talk about immune reprogramming. We're going to get into a little bit the whole T-cell phenomenon and whether or not that has a significant role in COVID or not. Before we get my guest in here, though, we're going to go over some data later in the show. I'm keeping a very close eye on Florida. It's really interesting. Florida has opened up completely, and their case count currently is going down, but we'll see. And again, case count is not so much we should be watching as these states open up. We need to watch the current hospitalization, which is kind of plateauing, and the death rate, which is also sort of plateauing, but it's a very small number, like 120, 150, which again, in a state of 30 million, that's doing pretty well. So we'll look into that. We'll talk about the overall, where there are seeing some seemingly more real spikes in case counts. And again, what do we mean by case counts anymore? Getting a little confusing looking at that. Let me look at you guys here on the chat. Kelly Gallagher says, good news. CNN said there's promising studies to treat COVID-19. Yes, there are. There are lots of those. And our friends on Twitch are already in there with the emojis that are extraordinary. So
we're going to need lots of emojis today.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, let's bring in my guest, Dr. Shahrokh Shabahang. Dr. Shabahang, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dr. Drew.
Dr. Shabahang is the Chief Innovation Officer at Aditx, and you're a microbiologist, a expert in molecular biology, and you are one of the prime movers in the Aditx company. What do you imagine when you formed Aditx? What was the sort of goal? What did you imagine you were doing there?
The goal, first and foremost, really was to get the most talented group of people we can get together and form a group that can work as a team. That was number one. And we felt that if we do that, we can hopefully do some extraordinary things. And we started with some very promising technology platforms, and we hope to continue to look at innovations to bring them to the market and to improve healthcare overall.
Let's talk about some of those. The Aditx core was one of them, correct?
Correct.
And so how can we use that? You know, there's all this buzz out there in the medical community, and by buzz, I mean just sort of conversation. No one is really I don't think anybody's taken a strong position yet, but are cytotoxic T cells useful in treating COVID? Is there a cohort of T cells that many of us might have from previous coronavirus exposure that's conveying some cellular immunity, or maybe there are ways we can enhance cellular immunity? How could the Aditx core help us monitor that?
Well, as you know, Dr. Drew, in order to properly treat any person, any patient, the first thing you need is proper diagnosis. And we felt that in order for us to embark on an ambitious goal of reprogramming the immune system, we first had to have the tool to have the proper instruments to look into the immune system. So that's one of the things that we're looking for. And the way we look at the Aditx monitoring division really is to develop a more comprehensive way of assessing the entire immune system rather than looking in bits and pieces of it.
And talk a little bit about how that works.
So if we look at some of the things that are, as you know, the whole topic of immunology has become really a topic of discussion with things that we never talked about. Cytokines and antibodies, immunoglobulins, everybody's talking about them.
Right.
So if we're assessing the immune system just based on, let's say, levels of antibodies, we know that may not be very accurate. So for instance, if we're looking at immunity, we know from previous infectious outbreaks that if you are developing, let's say, a vaccine, just because you have antibodies that have developed doesn't mean that those antibodies confer any immunity or protection. So in order to really evaluate that, what we have felt is we need to go beyond the detection of antibodies and look at cellular immune response, which encompasses both the cell-mediated immunity side, which is the T cells, and the humoral immunity side, which is not only the antibodies, but also the B cells that ultimately lead to formation of the antibodies.
Are you going to have an instrument, do you think, that'll be able to assess, for instance, have I adequately responded to a vaccine?
I believe so. And we're seeing a lot of great work right now being done by various labs on this whole concept. And there are a lot of exciting and innovative research projects that are being done and being published on a daily basis. The one thing that we envision and our ambition as Aditx is to bring forward technologies and assays that lend themselves well to development of clinical assays rather than research tools alone. And that, I think, is a very important thing where we can bring this and make it a more mainstream type of evaluation where we can routinely do these tests rather than just using them as research tools.
And you could see them used in things like graft rejection, transplant rejection immediately. That seems like an immediate use, no?
Absolutely. And one of the critical questions that surgeons are always dealing with is if a patient is having trouble, is it because my immune suppression levels are too high and the patient is having an adverse response to the levels of immune suppression, or is it too low and they're rejecting the graft? So if we have instruments that can allow us to visualize what's happening before there's a catastrophic event, then that would be very, very useful.
For sure. And then it can go into allergies, other autoimmune diseases. And to me, I think vaccine response is another big area.
Absolutely. And vaccine response is going to be, again, a big area. So the progression of the immune response starts with a T cell response. So if we can start evaluating T cells, and one of the big questions right now, too, is why is it that some people are developing more severe disease? And a lot of that is being linked to T cell activity. And there's conflicting reports in the sense that while some patients that are not doing well have a low T cell response, others that are not doing well are having an exaggerated T cell response. Why that's happening is not necessarily clear, but we need to understand which category those patients are in order to provide the right treatment for them.
Right. And again, I'm hoping we can answer those questions because that is right at the core of where people get into trouble.
It is. And again, it goes back to the question of having the right assessment of these patients before we have any prescribed treatment. So the vaccine world, I think, is going to shed some light on this, but again, they will need tools that will allow them to evaluate over time how patients are responding. For instance, the initial response might be, or the initial evaluation of a vaccine might be determination of antibody levels. But in order to look at more prolonged response to treatment, it would be very valuable to look at both T cells and the longevity of the activity of these cells and response, and also looking at the memory B cells that can then lead to plasma cells that can produce these antibodies more rapidly in the future.
I'm also extremely interested in finding out about whether or not there is some sort of cellular immunity intrinsically that people have. And the term 20, the number 20% comes up repeatedly in terms of isolated populations who get infected before the virus turns down. In other words, like the Diamond Princess cruise ship, or other isolated environments. You generally see about 20% of people get infected, and then the infection rate turns down rather precipitously. And one of the theories is that there might be some intrinsic cellular immunity that maybe 50% of the population has. We don't know that that's true or not true, but do you have any plans or anybody come to you to do studies to try to figure that out?
That is definitely one of the things that we're looking at. When you're embarking on a big task like this, you rely on collaborations. So that's one of the things that we're seeking, and we're in active discussions with a number of groups. And you hear in the literature, you see numbers thrown around about 20 to 50% of the population might already have some T cell memory.
Right.
And it raises some interesting questions. For instance, we know that children and younger individuals typically are facing lesser severe course of disease progression. Maybe that could be because of their more frequent exposure to seasonal types of flu, which includes other types of coronaviruses, and maybe those individuals have some increased level of immunity because of exposure, and maybe the elderly population who does not necessarily have exposure because they're not out as much may be more susceptible. There are a lot of unanswered questions.
Right. Or there might just be a more exuberant cellular immunity when we're younger, right? It might not be even just exposure. It might just be we just have whatever reason. We lose some of that as we age. Does that imply any therapeutics for you?
Again, the therapeutic approach, I think, has to be geared towards first identifying different subcategories of patients. And again, the vision that we have is more precision types of medicine. So for instance, there's a recent publication that came out and was highlighting the fact that some individuals who are showing more severe response are individuals who actually have autoantibodies to cytokines. So these are proteins that are produced by T cells that would help eliminate cells that are infected and have an impact on the rest of the immune system. So if these individuals they have autoantibodies to these cytokines, they would have a negative response in that sense. So we wouldn't necessarily want to treat that group by a treatment where you're mitigating the production of cytokines. And there are others who are having a more severe cytokine response or cytokine storm. So it really goes to having the proper tools to assess which patients you're treating and how you should treat each individual patient.
It's really interesting because these are questions that we have not been asking before, and COVID pushed this all front and center, right? Absolutely. And so for listeners out there that have heard me talk about the RANTE system and the cytokine system in the past, this is before we can go talk about whether somebody should be intervened upon in terms of that cytokine system. We have to be sure they're not already downregulating their cytokine system, which is really a fascinating question that I don't know that we know how to answer yet. Let me ask, I got a question here from my chat stream. I'm not sure if you can answer this. If any explanation between the blood type and the susceptibility for COVID, which by the way has been largely kind of shot down, is there a cellular immunity related to blood type? And can Aditx answer that question?
I can't directly answer that question. What I can say is that I believe that one aspect of where we want to go with precision medicine is profiling the immune system. So by that, I mean, we know now that, for instance, certain groups of the population that have a certain HLA type or a certain genetic background did not respond at all to certain vaccines like hepatitis B vaccine.
Oh, that's interesting.
So having the ability to evaluate and not only evaluate people after the fact, but try to predict who might be responding well to certain vaccines or even certain therapies based on their blood typing or HLA typing, I think is very
intriguing.
Is going to be part of precision.
Yeah, intriguing. Nicole's asking me some heated questions here. She first asked, would leronlimab work? Again, that's what we're getting at, whether somebody can have a downregulating intervention on their cytokine or anti-system. The fact that leronlimab has been held up this long makes me concerned that something is wrong with the what's going on with leronlimab at the FDA. And then she goes on to ask, what about someone with antiphospholipid syndrome? And in my experience with patients with antiphospholipid and COVID, they do very, very poorly. Is there anything that the Aditx core can tell us about why?
Specifically, no. And again, there are a lot of these questions that are still being evaluated and studied. So study after study that you read, you're faced with more questions than answers right now. But again, I think having the ability to do a very high throughput analysis, and there are a lot of studies that are being done currently to look at many parameters in the same study, will give some answers to these questions. The monoclonal antibodies, again, we have to be careful because if you select the right population, that is, let's say, for instance, has a over expression of IL-6, let's say, and you want to minimize that, that's one thing. But again, you have to have the diagnosis before you prescribe some of these therapies.
Right. And we're sort of shotgunning it a lot these days, right? If somebody gets into a cytokine activation, we start trying things, and we need to be more just prescriptive. And talk a little bit about that. This whole individualized. We're switching now over to cancer a little bit, just for an aside. The individualized approach to cancer treatment and how immunology has just revolutionized cancer treatment.
Yes, and cancer treatment is a great example. We see if you have a large cohort of patients that all may have a similar diagnosis, let's say stage 4 melanoma, and you place all of these patients on the same treatment, maybe 20% of them might respond well to a particular treatment, but a large number of them might not. And again, that's where it becomes very, very critical to have the ability to sort of prognosticate or predict ahead of time based on various inherent immune responses of each patient and select the right treatment for them. And I think if you think about it, one of my pet peeves is when you hear over and over, it takes $2 billion to put a product on the market. And I think a lot of the clinical trials can also benefit by stratifying patients and selecting the right patient cohort for a given treatment. And I think that's where precision medicine will really show, shine.
Right. And again, precision medicine is the sort of catchphrase for this field in cancer treatment. It's funny, I was talking to the secretary of HHS, he's not a doctor, he's an attorney. Somebody help me. Secretary Azar. And I brought this issue up, and I said, it seems to me that the way we do our push trials through the FDA is ridiculous. And he said, the problem is the phase 3 trials, which is getting enough patients. The phase 3 trials are terribly expensive. And I think what you're talking about is a way to make that less expensive and more targeted.
And we may not need as many patients.
That's the issue. The issue, they can't get the patients, and it's cost a fortune to get what they can get, and everyone's competing for. So we need to have some way of assessing things without this sort of scatter, where it's very targeted.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think we'll cut down on the costs, and we'll see maybe even drugs that were considered ineffective be actually effective in certain populations.
When you're a microbiologist by training, is that accurate, or are you a molecular biologist, or how do you characterize that? Both, right?
During my training, you have to do a lot of molecular biology to do microbiology. So.
Right. So when you left training, you imagined what you were going to do with your career. How has that changed?
It's interesting. When I started my career, it was focused on the pathogen. And we were always told, without a pathogen, you're not going to have disease. My street training now, post formal training, has been in immunology, and now my phrase all the time is, without a host, you can't have disease. So the host pathogen interaction is really fascinating, and I think bringing the two worlds of microbiology, virology, for instance, together with immunology is critical for developing the right approaches to address infectious disease.
And it's sort of extraordinary how COVID has been this particular moment that drives that point home rather hard for everyone.
It has, and I mean, again, a year ago, even if you talked about some of the terminologies that we use every day, most people would consider it jargon, but now it's part of our everyday vocabulary.
And just to kind of wrap up, what's your fantasy for the future of Aditx?
Our dream is really to do a couple of things, and to be more specific as far as the therapeutic side. The whole field of immunology is looking at ways to sort of get away from more systemic immune suppression and go into more antigen-specific immunotherapies, where you're not blindfolding the immune system, you're allowing the immune system to continue to do what it's supposed to do, which is to protect you, but you develop therapies that are more targeted and be able to treat conditions, whether it's on the one side where you're fighting infections and cancer, or the other side where you're trying to mitigate the damage to host tissues or rejection of organs, or even an allergen. So our dream would be to bring this concept of antigen-specific immunotherapy to fruition.
Are you finding collaborators out there? I'm imagining a lot of companies have kind of ideas like this, and I would imagine various collaborations might, so I feel like that kind of thing will happen in the future. Is that accurate, or is everyone just fighting amongst themselves?
No, it's interesting that the whole antigen-specific immunotherapy world is a fairly small world, because we haven't yet had a big success, but there are a lot of smaller companies that are looking to break into that. And the collaborations that we see are actually very fruitful. They come among academic institutions and groups like Immune Tolerance Network that are looking for opportunities where they can get into the clinic and do some clinical work with innovations. And
you guys have some extraordinary minds on your team, yes?
We do, and not only they're great minds, but they're exceptionally high character people that are very, very fun to work with. So it's a good team.
Well, listen, I appreciate you spending a little time with me. I want to talk to more of the scientists and sort of see where we can bring these things to life, and really particularly in terms of making a difference in the COVID story, because that's what's top of mind for everybody now. And so it's a interesting time for Aditx to step forward. So I appreciate you spending time with us. I appreciate you sending your people to talk to me, the scientists and whatnot. And thank you for building this company.
Thank you, Dr. Drew, for having us on your program.
All right. And then you tell me who you want me to chat with next, and we'll get even deeper into the science as we go.
We will.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That
is Dr. Shahrokh Shabahang. He's the Aditx Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of the entire operation there. So, Susan, I'm going to have you put up the chat on the screen here. There it is. She's already ahead of me. Let's see what you guys are thinking about.
That was interesting.
It is interesting, right?
It all went way over my head, but I'm glad somebody's working on this.
Well, I just think that it's important to expose us all to the people are trying to get out there with precision medicine aggressively, and it's a very exciting area. It's a very exciting field, and it's very challenging. It really is tough to do, and it's tough to do in a short period of time in the middle of a pandemic. That's the other thing. Let's see. This is DJ. Methods of coming vaccines ultimately turn out to be wide-reaching treatments for other coronaviruses like the common cold. I am seeing, DJ, not vaccine therapies for the common cold, but things that can block the binding of the common cold to the ACE2 receptor, which is how the cold gets into our respiratory system. So, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that COVID will leap forward a bunch of medicine. Look, just the conversation I just had with Dr. Shabahang, we don't think about sepsis and the inflammatory reaction the same way we did 6 months ago. It has really become much more common discourse amongst clinicians to be talking about the cytokine system, talking about when he mentions IL-6 treatment in the setting of a severe sort of septic picture. That is something brand new. Yes, there's DJ's question there. And that we all kind of are familiar with these precision these precision attempts to treat, and all the sort of controversies. This is now part of the common discourse in clinical medicine that was not even on the table 6 months ago. It's going to change how we deal with sepsis. It's going to change how we deal with, as he said, autoimmune diseases, allergies, and organ rejection. So there's a lot coming down the pike. And then, of course, common colds, because they're coronaviruses, are going to be dealt with potentially differently. So Nicole's going at me again here. Human monoclonal antibody designed for the treatment of SLE, dermatomyositis. Yes, that these monoclonal antibodies are part of the precision medicine that we're talking about out here. Okay.
I missed that.
What's up, Susan? It's all right. It's all right. There she is.
I have no idea what you just said.
It's all right. I was just summarizing that question, but thank you for highlighting that. Why do I
Some
think
of us are like, what?
Why do I think the United States has 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths from COVID? Kelly Gallagher is asking that. I think that is because we are. I think that's because we are obese. I think it is because we are old. I think it got into our nursing homes, and that's one of the tragedies of our story, is that it got into these institutional environments. I think we keep people alive a lot longer than other countries, and we ought to look at that or be talking about that with our family members. And I think the way to think about us is more by the state than as a country, because each state had a very different experience with this. And I've been saying since the beginning that it really is up to the local county health officials to manage their county outbreaks. And that's how our system is designed to run. I mean, the experience, let's put up, to that point, let's put up Florida right now. Susan's going to put up Florida on the
Germany or Florida?
Germany or Florida. Okay, this is the case count and COVID tracking project. Put the, oh boy. Can you put the...
That's new cases.
Yeah, you know how they have the 90 days versus full view? Can you put the full view up there? It's the other way. It's the other direction.
What do you mean, up above?
Yeah, there's usually way there. No, up. See where it says last 90 days versus full range? Okay, there we go. So as you go down, so that's what Florida has done, right? And it's sort of plateaued. Those are the case count. And again, if you go down further, go down. Okay, that's the hospitalization rate. That's coming down in spite of the case rate sort of plateauing, and they go down even further. Because the death rate's down below, Susan, a little further.
Sorry, I had to turn my headset around.
And there's the death rate. Death rate has plateaued at kind of a higher level, but not in a state with, what do they have, 30 million people? Let me see the Florida population.
107 new deaths.
Yeah, I mean, that's not very many deaths, particularly with a state with a lot of old people.
They would show the ages, just so you can tell
20
if it's
million.
an old person or if it's
right. They do need to tell us that.
Or if it was a cancer patient.
You're completely right. So now go back up and give me just the 90 days.
90-day fiance.
Yeah, 90. Whoop. Not 90-day fiance. Last 90 days. There we go. Now go down to the there. So you see the case rate is really for a state of 20 million. Look at September 28th. Put the little arrow on September 28th. You're on the 27th. No. Go to the next one.
It doesn't go to.
Yeah, it does. It's down.
Oh.
Look at that. So the case rate is 738 new cases. That's today or yesterday? Let's say today, 28th? That's yesterday.
29th.
That was yesterday. So yesterday they had
Today's not over yet.
I understand, but yesterday they had only 700 cases in Florida. Florida has opened up completely. So we will have a really good indication of, given how low they are now, again, and the slope is staying negative in terms of the case rate. It's sort of plateau, but it's going negative. We'll have a really good account of what happens when a state opens up. Will it go from this very low level to a sudden explosion? Will the hospitalization rate continue down? What will happen to this death rate? Excuse me. So this is a really important thing for us all to keep our eye on. So the next 2 weeks should really tell us something.
5 new deaths yesterday in Florida.
Which is out of 20 million people.
Since they opened up.
That's nothing. That's nothing. So not
World
to say that
open too.
any death is obviously a big deal if it's your loved one, but in a state of 20 million, that's doing pretty well. So let's go to Indiana if you can, which is also a state that just opened up.
You're going to test me now, aren't you? I didn't pull up Indiana.
Then go to New York.
I have New York.
So New York, is that New York?
You want the 90-day or the?
90-day, just like you have it. So go on down. So oh my God, the case rate. Oh my God, it's going positive. Oh my God. The Wall Street Journal, do you have that article I sent you, Susan? Do you want to pop that up?
Oh, you know what? I don't have it.
Okay.
Well, maybe I do.
She's going to throw that up there. I just sent her. I will tell you what the headline was. The headline was, I don't have it anymore.
Hold on, I think I have it, but it won't.
Let me see if I can find it. The headline is, don't have it.
I got it.
Okay. It's essentially saying that things are precarious in New York. They're looking at that data, which is new case rates going from essentially 500 to 800. Essentially 500 to 800, let's say. Which is a trend and needs careful attention.
Hold on.
Okay. And
I think this is going to go through. I hope.
Let's see. This is the. All right. Hits highest level in months. The New York. You would think that they're talking about tens of thousands of cases the way they highlight this. That's not actually the thing I sent you. What I sent you was a thing saying it's precarious, a precarious rise. Which, again, the healthcare system for the state of New York.
Highest level in months.
I know. So now go back to the New York case rate. And now to give me the full range. So that's going from 500 to 800, right? And here's the real story. Go down. Oh, I see. Oh, we should be in a panic in New York? Really?
834 people.
We should be in a panic because you shouldn't even know that. The health department should be paying close attention to it. They should be doing contact tracing. They should be figuring out where the increase is coming from. And they should not be causing headlines in the Wall Street Journal. Look at that. That is causing a headline about upticks and precariousness. If that's not panic porn, I don't know what is.
That's in all of New York, not just
the whole
Manhattan.
state of New York. So go on down. Let's look at the hospitalization rate. Oh, that's staying about the same. Let's go down and see the death rate. Oh, that's staying up. That's even going down further. That's gone down. But again, that takes a couple weeks to come up.
It's like,
point is,
we're not going to tell you.
You have to do your own checks on the numbers.
They get an A in their reporting too.
Well, that's in terms of the quality of the data they're getting.
Right.
Look at California now.
California
it's a B. California is the only B I think out there. Well, can you move? Are you able to move around or no?
Yeah, I can.
Go to COVID tracking. See that left upper? Just.
Okay, here's the United States.
Yeah, this is U.S.
You want me to go to the state?
So you see U.S. Let's go back up on U.S.
All right.
So U.S. So yeah, we got a little upturn there, and so the question is, where is that upturn coming from? And again, what are we calling cases? Are we calling sick people
Missouri.
cases? Or are we just calling a PCR 40-time amplification of RNA particles, from a virus a case? And look how it's dropping back down again too, by the way. It's actually, so it's really hard to know what we're looking at there. So you got to look at the death rate and hospitalization rate, which is sort of staying, it's sort of trending down, sort of staying constant. Here comes California. So California B, quality of data. So here's California.
Because we count people twice.
Oh my God. California is in disaster. No, it's not. California is plateauing. Now the head of our state public health department said, oh, we're going to go back up to 5,000 to 6,000 cases in the next 2 weeks. Guaranteed.
Okay.
Guaranteed. So I want everyone to mark their calendars. 2 weeks from Saturday, let's see if it's guaranteed that we've gone up to 5,000 to 6,000 cases in the hospital. It's possible. Only the virus really knows. But I'm going to bet not. I'm going to bet not. Oh, boy. What's this? Getting into a quantum principle here.
What?
I don't. This huge Brandy comment there. I can't get through
Go
it.
Brandy.
I can't get through it.
Because an experience is processed twice is more data after the observance than any shared experience. Ice cream, respect.
I don't know. I can't follow it.
Pain, anger. Thank you, Brandy, for the love.
Leopold discussed the linking of Aditx method with the new blood screening that predicts certain cancers and other ailments. That is the idea, to be able to have the precision medicine, to be able to measure a particular immune function for precision medicine. Exactly how that plays out, I got to talk to their scientists to figure that out a little more.
Somebody said, I hope we don't count the election twice.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So
if you get 2 COVID tests in a week and you have COVID and it comes up positive twice, they count it as 2 instead of 1. It's not like, when you watch a podcast and you only get to count 1 podcast. They know if you've been there before.
Okay, Flora May.
That's a problem with our system.
Why would my doctor claim that my 69-year-old auntie is too old for identical hormone replacement? Are they uneducated or think that women should just shrivel up and die after 70?
Yeah, that's not good.
That's a really rough question, Flora May. I need to know her sort of genetic heritage and risk for endometrial and breast cancer, that kind of thing. There are doctors that you can talk to, Dr. Donovan, Gary Donovitz, about this. He's sort of an expert in that, and I'm curious what he might have to say about it. So go back to the COVID tracking project. I want to show them North Dakota. So ND.
Oh, I have to go. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. It's at this page.
Yeah.
No.
Should all schools be open at this point? At this point, in most school systems, the risk of driving your child to school is a higher risk to your child's well-being than COVID. So just put that in context. Please put that in context. No, that's California again.
No, this is the United States.
Or U.S., okay.
So what do you want?
I want North Dakota. So you got to go to the...
Shoes.
Yeah. Just ND in the... You have to go all the way down. But what I want to show you is
North Dakota LMNOP.
ND. You'll see that there is, the U.S. has had a little uptick, and that uptick, part of it is coming from the Dakotas, where we had that Sturgis motorcycle rally. Now, people have gone in and evaluated. Oh, they only have a B in terms of their collection, like California. But let's take a look. All right, look. Ooh, now that is an outbreak, right? That is a serious positive slope that needs to be managed.
400 cases.
They've gone from 50 to 500, essentially. That's a real deal. Let's go look at the hospitalizations. Go down.
Is there a major college in North Dakota?
No. They had the Sturgis motorcycle rally, and look at the hospitalization rate. It's gone up. Everything's gone up 5 times.
That is the motorcycle rally.
Well, that would be the reasonable conclusion, right? Although somebody went in and studied the facilities where the Sturgis people visited, the bars and restaurants and things, and they didn't find any added incidents of COVID in those institutions. So it's still hard to know exactly what happened. I'm going to say that is Sturgis. It makes sense that it would be. It makes perfect sense. I mean, every time there's a big gathering, why not? Yes, Sammy, I know it was in South Dakota. So, Susan, they're going to make you show South Dakota, too.
Well, maybe they came from North Dakota.
Well, I was just showing that it was in the Dakotas generally, but now we have to show South Dakota. Okay, I know, Sammy. I know. All right. Let me show you South Dakota.
Hold on.
You have to just go back.
I know. Relax.
And go down.
There. Talk about something else while I do this.
I am taking 500 milligrams of quercetin, Shashir. And having no ill effect, and I seem to be doing pretty good, and take about 25 milligrams of zinc. Again, Dr. Zelenko is out there with a bunch of stuff today. We're talking about the Zelenko method for prophylaxis.
There's South Dakota.
I'm not sure. Yeah, this is the deal.
Flying W.
Yeah, I know. This is the deal, Sammy. It's the same as North Dakota, essentially. It's the same. North Dakota's a little worse, perhaps, but it's essentially the same thing. It's a significant outbreak in the Dakotas. Now, Is that in the Indian reservations? Is
Yeah, but
that,
it's
where is that
400
happening?
cases.
There's a lot of Native Americans living in that
4,000.
area, and there's increased potential for transmission there. So I don't know. I've not seen anybody go in and study this properly. I've not heard yet, but people are wondering where the upticks are in the country. It is there, and it is Wisconsin. Can we look at Wisconsin also? Show me Wisconsin. Midnight Toker, no, I don't think this Sturgis proves that opening now would be a huge surge in cases, because opening doesn't mean you're allowing large congregation of people. Opening businesses, I hope Florida's not allowing, for instance, well, they want to have the Super Bowl by January, I'm hearing, but in the meantime, I don't think they're going to have the stadiums open. If they do, they will see transmission. But again,
They have an A+ in their counting.
all right, let's go down and look at that. So look at Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin is not requiring masks. They had a lot of demonstrations and gatherings and things. And look at what happened since Labor Day.
But in California, we're going down.
Right. So going to the beach seems to be an okay thing because hundreds of thousands of people went to the beach here in California. But whatever is going on in Wisconsin and the Dakotas seems to be a real problem. They need to get these under control. These are not states that should be, I don't think they should be opening, though some people might say that it's just going to run its course whether you're open or closed. And that's an interesting argument. I think we are doing something with masks and distancing. DJ wants us to have Zelenko on again. Susan, you got for that? Okay, she's just going to make it happen magically. Okay.
I would love to have him
on. All right. Okay. Dustin, essentially the COVID data is incomplete. Well, that's true. A lot of people don't and didn't even know they had COVID. What that is true. Which suggests mortality rates are lower than they actually are. True. Also, didn't the CDC say that this doesn't even qualify as a pandemic based on the data? I'm not sure that's something I would hold them to. And if someone gets COVID and they have little or no symptoms, will that person body react the same to COVID if they get it again? Some debatable, but most people think you do get an antibody response, or at least an immune response that is adequate to give you some immunity. The question, though, is how long? Done 9977. Do I not seem okay? Is there something you're concerned about, something particular? Tomorrow,
Dr. Drew, are you okay?
I know. I'm wondering
he's
what he's
a little off his game today. He's a little anxious.
Yeah, I suppose I am. Tomorrow, Megyn Kelly in here, everybody. We're not going to talk about COVID tomorrow. We're going to talk about Megyn Kelly, her new podcast, her new media company, and sort of how she sees the world's condition right now.
I heard her new podcast, and she sounds good.
It was really good. It was very
she
interesting.
Had a good guest.
She's
got a big team of people working for her, so it might be a good show. Yeah,
her new podcast is with Glenn Greenwald, who is essentially the guy I think that sort of brought Snowden to the fore, and he's a really interesting guy. All right. So with that said, Susan, is there anything further to get into here? Do you guys on the stream want anything else?
So everybody tune in tomorrow, okay?
Yeah. Barb, the melatonin
Give
issue.
Megyn good remarks. And she won't see it, but it'll be a nice positive.
Yeah, I will bring up your questions to the extent I'm going to be focusing on her pretty seriously tomorrow. Addie Bay, what new vitamin D data? Just that vitamin D is an important part of the complications of COVID. I've been saying that from the beginning, and I've been advocating vitamin D replacement. Susan, you're taking your vitamin D, right?
I know. I never take any vitamins, and I've been taking D and C.
Can Skid Row be used as an example of being outside and not socially distant? Ryan saying, well, that's one of the reasons we think the COVID didn't tear through the homeless population, because they are outside and they are somewhat distant, some of them.
And nobody gets close to them. They have a smell block. It's socially distanced smell.
Yep.
Like when you go on a train and there's a homeless guy on there, there's always about 6 feet between him and everybody else.
Yeah, Barb, I do not make much of the melatonin evidence. I know plenty of people are taking melatonin that have gotten into trouble with the virus, so I just don't see it. It doesn't make much sense to me in terms of the you need something pharmacological, really powerful to help people with this. Okay, Sherry, I don't know what you want me to say as far as rheumatologists. They are not infectious disease doctors. We have been consulting with them in terms of the cytokine regulation and some of the medications that they use. That's how these things ended up being used in the ICU. We talked to Dr. Yadigar about how he brought his rheumatologist friends in to help him navigate early in the pandemic how to treat cytokine activation. The Skid Row inhabitants.
I'm sorry if that was rude, but it's just something I've observed.
What was it? Oh, that.
Sometimes you can smell them. It's a good way to, not all homeless people, but.
Dunn9977 says I seem more uptight than last week. So I am. That's probably true. I've got a lot going on this week that I'm dealing with. People of Ohio filed a federal lawsuit against the state's emergency orders. Good, Doug. I think when we look back on this, we will see that there's been grotesque constitutional overreach. I was with Adam Carolla this morning, and he wants to establish for California at least, just open your business day. Like somewhere around October 15th, we all just open our businesses. And what are they going to do? Are they going to take everybody in California and fine them? It just makes no sense. So I don't know. I think he's onto something because his question is, why do we listen to this when it's so clearly an excess? And so, why don't we just open our businesses safely? It's a really interesting point of view. Does patting my forehead stop COVID? No, it does not, Keith. Sorry about that. Nor hitting your head against the wall. All right. Open Disneyland. Yes, WWM. We need to open Disneyland just the way they opened Disney World. It's not as though there's been any outbreaks in Florida. I gave you the Florida data. Disney World's been open for a while.
I know, those kids need to go.
And they're doing it in a way that is safe. Again, the idea is not just to open, but to open safely. I think we got to learn to live with this virus. It's going to be with us for a long, long time. And so the job is to learn to live with it and effectively control it and effectively engage in our life. Adam's tweets have been a bit much lately, CJ says. Could be.
All right, CJ, I have your Dion Joseph request.
Oh, Dion, the policeman? I would love to talk to Dion. Dion's a great guy.
Who is it?
Dion is, I talk to him on Twitter all the time. Dion is the guy I walked around Skid Row with when I was walking around with Emily from Fox News.
Oh.
He's been on that beat there for like 20 years, and he knows.
Do you have his number?
I might. Let's see. We're going to do this live on the air. Dion, Christine Devine does if I don't.
I can probably get it from Emily.
I do have it.
Look at you. I was going to have to find it.
How many people have had trouble with their iPhone 11? Mine sort of sucks. It's been really weird since the beginning.
That was supposed to be a studio phone, and you wanted it, so.
I know.
Thanks for telling me, though. I won't get it.
Yeah, wait till the 12 comes out. I would advise you to do that. So opening up with social distancing and mask, I think we'll be fine. DJ, I think we will be, and I don't know about fine, but we in certain states that are, they're doing well and are showing significant reduction in their case rates. Yeah, I do think that we can really start to open up and then really look carefully at where there are outbreaks. We don't have to live in fear. We don't have to, we don't have to live in fear. It's really not a way to live our life. It's really not good. It is leading to all kinds of mental health consequences. We're seeing depression up, anxiety up, suicide up, opiate overdoses up, alcoholism up, everything's up. And delaying coming to medical care is causing increased deaths from cancer, heart disease, and lack of proper medical screening. We are going to see hundreds of thousands of deaths from the overreach of what we've done in response to one illness. There are many other illnesses out there ready to get us. So there you go. And the overreach. What's interesting, if you look at Dr. Michael Levitt, he starts to look at excess deaths. And we had a couple, 3 months where we had a pretty good substantial increase in excess deaths. And now we're below our baseline in excess death, which suggests that the people that died in those first 3 months would have died now, which is kind of an interesting way of analyzing the data. So, it's more to be revealed as the data continues to unfold. So we will see on that. 1 second. Okay.
So are you going in for Fox tonight?
I am not going to Fox 11 tonight because of the debates. And people are saying that this is going to be the most watched presidential debate in history. So we'll see.
Yeah, we're all interested. Even I'm going to watch it.
Good. This should be interesting. So tomorrow we probably will be discussing that with Megyn Kelly. So if you want to hear her thoughts about that.
They liked your questions, and I think you guys have a nice conversation.
Good.
They were the woman that I was talking to, the contact. It's like you can tell they're television producers because they wanted every detail and how you're going to end it, how she knows when she's going to leave, and she has a heart out after 45 minutes. You know, it's funny because they're like very specific. They have to give all the details.
That's how you ruin a podcast, by the way.
No, I told her that it was just. It's
no, I mean for her.
No, it's just friends. I said just like friends talking.
Right, exactly. You know how to manage a podcast.
Let your great minds just meet and let it flow. And I'm sure it'll be whatever you talk about, you'll both be able to talk about.
George Clark, that makes perfect sense to me to manage any surge or any little outbreak by zip code. That seems perfect to me. That's how you trace it. It's how you figure it out. Adam today was a little harsh. He had a little bit of a head of steam.
Yeah. And then you came over here and projected it on me.
Yeah. DJ, yes, you can, if your doctor is not satisfactory to your satisfaction, you can always consult with somebody else.
Also be sure to check out the Dr. Drew After Dark podcast, number 85, called Making the Curve with Josh Potter.
Oh, wow, that's up right now.
Do you pull more stuff out of his back? Or
we talk a little bit about that, but no, you have to see your mom's house live to actually get the surgery.
Oh, I thought there was
Douglas was wanting to see that surgery for some reason. So, okay, well, thank you for being here, everybody. We'll be in here tomorrow at 2 o'clock with Megyn Kelly. And
it'll be early.
Again, it will be a non-COVID type conversation. I'm sure COVID will come into it.
On here.
What's that?
God.
What's that?
I just realized that the wording is wrong.
For tomorrow?
Yes, let me fix that.
Okay, yes, Chef Eva, Rational Revolution, Christina P. and I, after Josh Potter, the next 2 podcasts, you will hear a lot of Rational Revolution. We actually have now a greeting. Let's see if I can give it to you. It's a hand motion like this. It's like almost like Mussolini, but don't think Mussolini. Just think this is your new greeting. Your new greeting is your hand like that. And literally philosophers have been sending in operational ideas about what the basic principles of the Rational Revolution ought to be. We talk about it in great detail next week. So you'll look for that on your mom's house at After Dark.
We have a little video.
About... Hey, did you whiten your teeth?
No, I just
look a little whiter.
taking better care of myself.
Good. What prompted that?
I got laid a couple times. No, I'm just
good. Good. That'll do it.
One time really helped, but it'll do it. Even with the cyst, I got laid.
We'll talk about that a little bit because I got to. It was almost like,
awkward.
It was almost like we had sex together. I did penetrate you with a scalpel. To be fair,
I don't know if anybody can hear that.
He had a giant pilonidal cyst in his back that tracked all the way down. It was really something else, and so we operated on it, packed it, and
there was an echo.
Yeah. So. Well, they could read it nonetheless.
I know. I can't figure out. I want to see how to do it without the echo. I need help here. Okay. Oops.
All right, Susan. I got to wrap things up.
Okay.
Thank you all for being here today. We will be with the great Megyn Kelly tomorrow, so be here a part of that. Are we going to do Thursday and Friday, Susan? Is that? Are you going to be out of here?
I don't know.
All right, we will see how that goes.
We're working a lot of days here in a row, so
2, 3. But okay.
Okay. All right. Nothing planned. No guests. Possibly. Can we meet tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll talk about it tomorrow. So, but I am anxious. I'm very excited to talk to Megyn Kelly. I think that's going to be very interesting.
You'll be able to do it talk to your buds on the weekend for sure.
Yep. Yes, the Q-tip was quite an interesting.
I wish I could get rid of that echo and have the sound come through. Yeah. So frustrating.
All right, you guys. We will see you tomorrow too with the great Megyn Kelly. The World Health Organization estimates that each year approximately 1 million people take their own life. That's one death every 40 seconds. Experts predicted numbers would peak in 2020, but no one could have imagined the devastation brought on by COVID-19. During the coronavirus pandemic, you may experience anxiety, sadness, and loneliness. Existing mental health conditions, including severe anxiety and major depression, may worsen. If you're feeling hopeless, contemplating self-harm, or you're concerned about someone else, I'm here to tell you there is hope. A Mission for Michael is dedicated to helping clients achieve complete inner and outer transformation. Mission for Michael is the premier resource for intensive mental health treatment in Southern California. With an astonishing 2-to-1 client-to-staff ratio, each client in their facility receives individual care 24 hours a day, overseen by a team of all doctorate or master's level clinicians. With a focus on evidence-based treatment, along with personalized and compassionate care, they offer mental health treatment that can change lives. If you're suffering from mental illness or you're concerned about a loved one, go to amfmtreatment.com. Again, that's a Mission for Michael, amfmtreatment.com, or call 866-581-4401. Again, that is 866-581-4401.
Real talk.
Headlines have become sickening. They become poisonous.
Dissecting headlines.
Defying state orders. Sheriff Bianco not enforcing what the governor is saying.
Dialed in with decision makers.
Clarify what you actually meant.
Get the answers you need.
At the beginning of this, we were told, don't wear a mask. Is this really helping?
Expect a different kind of newscast. Fox 11 News Special Report. Weeknights at 7.